Good morning, beautiful people. Welcome to episode 5 of the Can Moms Are Good Moms 2 Saturday morning wake and bake show where we get loud, real, and raw. Today we are going to continue on from last week with the female body. This week we are going to be talking about the boobs and the vagina. Miss Erica, which is our RN that was going to touch excuse me, on the topics a little bit more, had to slide out due to a family emergency, which is totally fine because I researched and I got some notes. So we'll be able to touch on the topic a little bit, like I can give you guys keynotes and and the stuff that I found, and actually talk to Erica and confirmed what I found was I was in the right area for what I was looking at. Good morning. Oh, I was like, Lucy's mom. I was like, oh, wait, that sounds familiar. Oh, hi. I was like, I know you. We still need to meet up, by the way.
Everybody's coming in. Got Miss Jillian.
Good morning.
Good morning, my lovely cuss.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Good morning.
Hello.
How are you?
I am good.
Good.
I am just awake.
That picture that is behind you, that is beautiful of that lady. Oh my gosh, what a
that's,
beautiful picture.
This is my husband's man cave. So it's like a 80s advertisement. I think it was, I can't remember what it is, but
I
yeah,
like it. Well, see, I'm such a big-haired 80s fan, so like being 80s, no wonder I'm drawn to it. I'm like, ooh, let's go back. Okay, Miss Jillian, before we jump in, you had a very special request you wanted to do this morning.
Yes.
So go ahead.
I want to tell you guys it's been a really rough week, and I know a lot of us have had a lot of family members that has got their wings, and passed on. This week my brother 47 of COVID-19 complications, and then on the 11th my cousin only son was in a car accident and passed away. So today I don't want to do any more the moment of silence. I just want to do a round of applause for the souls that came before us and make us, better people that we are. One thing that they're teaching us is that we got to live now. So let's live our best life. Live today, guys. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about nobody else, what anybody else say about you, them. Live your best life now because tomorrow is not promised. So can we just get a little round of applause for all the souls that came before us? Yay!
It's definitely been a rough year and a half for a lot of us. It has just been
even Millie,
a whirlwind.
her grandma is a whirlwind, and we have to. That's when we talk about mental illness as well. That we got to keep talking to each other. I'll tell you guys this week. Amanda didn't hear from me, and all I got was, "Hey, get out your funk," and she didn't know that I really needed that because I literally was in the funk, and I saw it, and I'm like, thank you for that. I just jumped up like this.
She got quiet, and I was like, that ain't Jillian. She ain't. And I didn't even say hi to her or anything. I straight up jumped in her DM. Like, you,
get out your phone right now. I appreciate
well, and that's why we're doing this. So there are a lot of groups that are talking about mental health. It's a super hot topic right now, especially because we're going into the winter seasons where it gets starting getting dreary and cold, and then you got the holidays coming up. You got Thanksgiving, and then you got Christmas. You know what I mean? It's a lot. So there's a lot of people that are touching on the mentality of how to get through the holidays. But I wanted to take it a step further, and I wanted to talk about the female body, because us as women doing this thing, the things that we're about to speak about and the things that we spoke about last week, that helps a lot with our mentality. You hear men all the time talking about they're sexually frustrated. I'm sexually frustrated. I need to release. Women get that same thing.
Right.
We just don't talk about it because our generation was raised not to talk about it. That was stuff that you did quietly in the bedroom with your loved one, and you didn't talk to anybody about it.
It was taboo. It was taboo.
It was.
And then you were called
taboo.
naughty if you was talking about something out of your past. You're naughty or you're sassy.
Yes.
Or all the above.
Correct. But the thing is when these things that we're trying to hide and hush, they're a part of our mentality as a female. They are a part of our stress, our worry, our happiness, our joy, our everything. Like our boobs, our receptors in our boobs, the receptors in our vagina that we're going to talk about. All of it, just when we have that release and we have that feeling good about ourselves. Because I mean, how many times have you gone and done something with somebody or with yourself, and afterwards you're like, all right, you know what? I feel pretty good, actually. You know what I mean? Because it does. It all connects with our brain. And that's why I love pulling these people on. I was like, hey, you want to come on my podcast? Because I didn't get your name, by the way. Can you tell it to me?
Shannon.
You know what? I actually did know that because I wrote that down. I do back history on all the people. I'm a nerd. I'm like, but something that I really like that Shannon did is she's doing like we're doing too, is she's like, you know what? No, like we have to speak out about this stuff. And a lot of her posts are raw like this and they're real, because if we don't talk about it, we're going to keep suppressing it, and we're going to keep suppressing it. And depression is just going to keep on coming. So ladies, do we want to start top or do we want to start bottom?
Well, we might as well start. Yeah, let's start with the top, because we last week let's start with the top.
Yeah, okay.
And then we'll end.
Okay.
What you got?
I found the most interesting thing. So I did a little bit more when I found out Miss Erica wasn't going to be in this morning, which is totally fine. I told her, I was like, girl, don't even sweat it.
Everybody's going through something. Everybody's going through something. That's understandable.
So I pulled up my research, because I did research before and actually touched base with her to make sure, because I wanted to make sure we were on the same topic. I don't want to be like, I found this, and she's like, well, I'm a nurse, and actually that's internet talk.
Right.
So we were talking, so I did a little extra research this morning, and so we're going to start with our boobs. So in our boobs, we have hormone receptors in our breast. I mean, think about it. When they get touched, when you're pregnant, when you're breastfeeding, when they get hit, it's got a lot of sensation and receptors in there. Well, it also has the hormone receptors that connect to our brain that go, hey, that felt good. So our hormone receptors are actually part of our endocannabinoid system. Can you believe that? Oh my, yep.
That's interesting.
It's actually part of the system. And that system, when cannabis, and this is for CBD and some THC, it's primarily a lot of CBD that really is what get like the functions going. But there are some THC strains that do it as well. It acts as the same thing as taking a hormone steroid. Same thing. It's the same thing. Yep. So I was reading up on it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And there are some studies out there that they've actually had males that took cannabis and then took a hormone steroid and compared it. And it was the same thing. They were both horny, like they both had the same sensations, like they had like all these, machines on them too, like his heart rate, and they check your pulse. And it all was essentially the same. But yet here we are told not to talk about this when we literally have endocannabinoids that is in our cannabis flowing through our body already as it is.
Yes.
And then we took a little cannabis, and it's the same thing as taking a natural hormone steroid. I just thought that was
interesting. I never knew that. And that's
Did they do that? Did they do that on women or just the men?
I haven't found any female ones yet, because it's one of those things like, shh. So I didn't find any testing on them. But what I did find was, I was almost late to the live, because here I am going, oh, I got my next post. I'm like, because I found some actually really cool charts that doctors have at least done. And on this chart, it shows you like where the boobs are and like where the receptors start and break off. And then when they start and where they break off, it shows you where the cannabis goes through and what parts of the receptors that it affects more than not. But they don't have any studies. I haven't found any studies yet where females have like volunteered and they did like actual. But this is definitely on my radar now.
Yeah,
this is definitely going to be more to come. Yes. But I just, so then that kind of, I'm gonna tip the scale just a little bit here, because that's just what I do, right? Something that I found that was really, really, really big with cannabis and the breast receptors was breast cancer. and they go in. This is going to be a whole nother topic too that I'm going to break down about it as well. So because we have those hormone receptors that are in our boobs that are connected to the endocannabinoid system, when you add cannabis to it, it acts as a natural steroid to help, like, not calm the See, I'm not a nurse. Like, I'm trying to use words, but I'm not. Just to let everybody know, I'm not a doctor. I am not a nurse. I have no degree. This is for me talking to a nurse and just evidence I found on the research on it. Yes, just want to let you guys know that. Just so you know. So even like on this one that I have right here, it starts with the top, the CB1 and the CB2 receptor, and it goes down, and then it breaks off, and then it goes down to migration, and it says cancer growth. So the cannabis, essentially CBD, can go in, and it helps ignite these receptors, and it helps these receptors actually fight back because we already have it naturally in our body. I know there's a lot of research that's going on with the cancer. I haven't, like cancer and CBD or the Delta 8, I haven't stepped foot a lot into that yet, only due to when I get into that, I want to speak to like a nurse or a doctor. Like I want to have like a one-on-one call and get like straight facts. But there is a lot of stuff out there if anybody wanted to go look. If you wanted to look up the endocannabinoid system and breast cancer, there's a lot of stuff actually out there that shows that it's a positive for it. Now, it doesn't cure it. It doesn't make it magically disappear. You're not going to have to never do chemo. You know what I mean? Like some of those things still can take into effect and can still take into play with using those things. Again, it's very, very littly researched on, and that is definitely something that I feel definitely needs a lot more research on, because I hate that I can find like little bits of things and it's just like, it's right there. I need more evidence, but nobody has any. So,
well, look in the chat. You have body relaxation. I have recently heard research regarding terpenes and hormone relationship. And then Georgia had something to say too. If you guys want to step in and say something, we welcome you. You know,
anybody,
request to join, and you know, we welcome to hear what you have to say. You know,
absolutely.
What
do you think, Miss Shannon?
Is that all right?
Oh yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think though? Because you're really taking this in. I want to do your input. That's why I do these things. I love hearing like sides.
Well,
tell me.
I think of it more. My side of things is perimenopause. So I'm in perimenopause, and I'm dealing with those hormones. And I know that hormonally we change. So then we go through our first initial period when we're young, and then that is quite, you know, what's the word?
A lot.
Yes.
Until it kind of tapers off and gets more regular into your 20s and 30s more, and then it starts to get into getting close to the perimenopause years. So how cannabis affects you in these different stages of life is going to be different. And so I found that while certain things were good for me before, they're not now. And I've heard that's happening for some women have to go off cannabis completely for a few years around menopause. And some women, menopause is completely enhanced by using cannabis. So it's really different. But as far as the breast thing, I don't know. I've never liked people touching my breasts. It's like, stay away. And when it comes to cannabis, so around my period, really bad in your 40s, like it's heavy and the symptoms are worse. And it's much like when you went through puberty times 1,000. And so my breasts would get really, really sore, and they'll get sore throughout the month, but actually cannabis makes it feel worse on me.
Really?
Interesting.
Yeah. So it would actually make it feel more sensitive, a more bloated feeling, and that heavy, like it enhances the sensations. So for me, it enhances that sensation. But for vaginal things, it improves it. But up here, it's worse. So that's what I found. It also to do with the receptors too, because doing the research on the endocannabinoid system, we have these enzymes that break down the cannabinoids, or endocannabinoids in our body. So if you have too much enzymes or not enough enzymes, or you have more receptors in some places and less receptors, your body is going to react differently to cannabis. So the way it works on me is going to be completely different than it works on you. And that's why I never recommend strains. People are like, oh, what's the best strain for this? And it's
I
like,
don't either.
Yeah.
it might be fine for me, but for you, it might have the exact opposite effect. Your body is so unique. It's a fingerprint. So you kind of have to experiment yourself.
See, yeah, and I do the same exact thing. Well, people are like, well, what strains do you recommend? And then I respond with, well, I have my personal strains that I have found works for me. But for you, let's figure out how you can break it down. Like, what have you used before? You know, like, what did you, because you're right, everybody is different. Like, I find that so, I love this stuff. Like, I don't know if you guys could tell, but this stuff just makes me so excited. I find it so fascinating that you're like, up here it hurts, but at the same time down there it helps. You're like, thanks, body.
You have to find a balance. How do you find a balance is what you're saying.
Yes.
Because as soon as you started talking, I started thinking to myself, Shannon, whatever strain might just be too strong for your system, like, you know what I mean? And you may have to go down strains if you need to. You know, you may have to go down strains if you need to, or try something lighter, or do the CBD with a little THC, just a little bit, and see if it does something, and then try a little something else. You know, even the hemp just might help you. Just the hemp cigars might just help you.
We don't have that here. At least I haven't seen it. Yeah, Canada. Hemp CBD is regulated the same as THC, and most of the products you buy here, you can get hemp CBD. So we do have that, but it's not like the States where you can get that everywhere. So you have to go to an actual cannabis store, and there's only a few brands that have like CBD only, no THC. So it's
interesting.
Yeah, and CBD only, no THC.
We do have that, but it's not like the States. It's not like you can get it
normal.
everywhere.
No, like, so they're essentially flopped of us. It's like all THC down here, like you can find it everywhere, and CBD up there, it's like all THC and a little bit of CBD. You know what I mean? It's almost like Canada flopped from us.
Well, we have a lot of CBD products, but they're only sold in cannabis stores. You cannot buy them outside of cannabis stores.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have to actually go to a dispensary to get it like you would a joint or flower.
It's so dumb how they think. They also cap the limit of THC, and that includes CBD. So if you want to buy a bunch of CBD bath bombs, you can't. It's like, come on. We have some pretty awful rules that will get better in time, but one of the things I'd love to see in Canada is just better access to CBD. More information around CBD, more products of CBD, and more, like, we have quite a few. Like, don't get me wrong, we do have quite a few. There's quite a few good brands. And there's some that are getting a lot more affordable too. But it's the access. It's like you have to go to this cannabis store. It's completely regulated. Yeah. It's just a little bit much, especially because CBD is considered like a supplement. You know, the WHO organization, World Health Organization, has classified it as such. So it's said it's safe and can be used as a normal supplement. Right. It's no different than going to a Whole Foods or something and getting like lion's mane mushrooms or something else. Like but it's not like that here. So we're still in that area. And it really drives me crazy, but because CBD is really good for so many things. And it can be used in such high doses.
It keeps me calm. You know, just calm. You know what I'm talking about? Because, you know, your mind can take you places that you don't know where you're going. You can start with one thought, and then you all the way in South Carolina, and you're like, what the hell? I'm in California. What just happened? You know what I mean? So what CBD does for me, like I told Amanda, I thought I never needed it until the expo. And I tried it, and I realized, oh, I'm good. I'm in La. I'm feeling good. I can, you know, I can get some work done. I'm thinking now. My, you know what I mean? Thinking skills have popped in. You know what I mean? So CBD is really, really good for you.
Until we went to the photo shoot, and I was done taking my pictures, and I said, Miss Jillian, you want some THC? I got indica. She said, yep. And I said, let's go.
Literally walked through the airport after that photo shoot higher than a kite. So the guy in the airport, he was like, you okay? I said, yeah, I'm good. Walked through security. She was like, you good? I was smelling like 10 pounds. Man, what?
I didn't know that, but that's fantastic. I mean, I'm super glad I grabbed you.
Didn't have a chance to do anything, right? It was just straight from the photo shoot, change your clothes, straight to the airport. And you know what I mean? It's like, I'm feeling good. I'm calm. Yeah.
I have a question. Okay, so you were talking about menopause. Have you done any research for afterwards for like when your periods are like done?
No, but I've talked to women that have, because I'm
Um,
not in menopause yet, but I'll be there in
but
probably in about 5 years. So I'm like, what can
tell
I
me a little
expect?
bit about that because
Yeah,
I had to have a hysterectomy, so I have no uterus, so I don't get my periods, I don't get the cramp. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like my body is essentially like what happens after menopause, except
yeah.
for they left one ovary just to make sure I didn't go into early menopause. That way my body still thinks that it's like producing something. But
Mhm.
but we were actually asking about this last week, and I'm curious, like, so what have you found out for the ones that are like on the other side of menopause? I'm curious.
Um, well, it just seems like they're relieved they don't have their periods anymore. Their emotions are more calm, and they have more like, it's more even Steven. It's like less of this roller coaster ride throughout. This is the part I hate so much, and I really love to turn it off and be like, well, you know what? Let's just do menopause now. Okay, come on, let's bring it on. Because I can't take it's this roller coaster ride of emotions for me, at least through the month, that especially during perimenopause ages where you just get these depressed, and it's like up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And it's, but I've heard from others that they're way more calm, anxiety's way less, they feel more just kind of happy and free. And I'm like, yeah, bring that on. It's like,
Yeah, but you know what? There's a lot of
bring
things
that
that come
on.
with it because I'm going through it. You know, after my son passed away, everything just went hot. Stop. I never had it 5 years. I still don't have it. You know, but the hot flashes, I still get those, you know, every now
Yeah.
and then. I'm hot, I'm cold, I'm hot, I'm cold. You know, I don't have a period, but around the time of the month, you still get like, okay, a little horny kind of feeling. You're still getting that sensation of, okay,
Yep.
you know,
That's
before
what
the
my mom
period.
told me too. You get
Yeah,
phantom periods, kind of
yeah,
like it's
yeah,
your body remembers, so you still
yeah,
go through it a bit, but it's just
yeah,
not the
Say
same.
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I totally
I've heard
agree.
that actually. Okay, so
People in the
since
chat are
we're
cracking up.
it since we're real here, like we just talk real stuff. Okay, so now that we have moved downstairs because menopause comes with downstairs, there is a receptor that is in our ovaries, and it is called the Vanilloid receptor. This Vanilloid receptor is part of the, sorry, I had my notes up and then I scrolled because I started reading, and that's what I do. It's a protein that's inside of your body, that's inside of your ovaries. The Vanilloid receptor helps with, hold on, I don't want to quote anything wrong, so you guys are just going to have to bear with me because I want to
Or
make
just
sure
take
that
your time.
I want to make sure I'm reading my notes correctly. um, okay. So there was a reason why I said spicy on, like, today's episode was going to be spicy. So the Vanilloid receptors are a part of your in your ovaries, and they help with reproduction. But not only do they help with reproduction, there are neurons in it that help with stimulation for hot and for cold. So what this I hate speaking on these subjects when I only know a little bit on them. Sorry. Anyway, so these receptors that are in our ovaries, they not only do they help for the reproductive system, but they also help regulate our temperature for like when things are spicy. A couple of the examples that they use was like chili. There is so when you eat like a chili pepper and you get really hot and you get like you just get that hot sensation, like, well, when you get hot and bothered, you kind of get that chili pepper sensation where you getting hot and bothered.
Yeah.
Well, this Vanilloid receptor that is in our ovaries actually takes cannabis and helps with these sensations with regulating them. So not only do they help the sensations go up to where you want it more, but there is in certain instances, like everybody is different, there is in some certain instances where it can actually help regulate your body as well to keep those hormones at a higher level, at a higher draw of the level. The last thing, so I'm going to touch on this, and then we're just gonna free ball the rest of this because this is not my jam. If you guys cannot tell, I like free for all
But it's good
talking.
information.
Like
No, we need it. It's good information.
it is, yeah. So there was one more thing I wanted to tell you that I found about the Vanilloid receptor and the cannabinoid system.
I mean, literally, we didn't even know this existed until last week episode when our kind of nurse
It's
came on
true.
and we were like, what? Write that down, put it in the chat, and since then it's just been like research, let's go.
It has.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, I love it. Okay, so right here it says, so there is evidence that the CBD has an antipsychotic effect, which we already knew that. We know THC can have that effect. But when it comes to your system and wanting that effect and it working together, like I said, it just helps regulate it, but it also helps engage it. It makes it hot. It makes it bothered. Like it makes you like tingly and hot downstairs. We're going to have to circle back on this subject because I would like Miss Erica still wants to come in and talk about it. So,
Yeah.
Question for you ladies. Have you found when you're going through menopause, like I'm interested in this menopause stuff too, because if you think about it, it's on the subject of mental health, like depression and mental health, because when you go through menopause, it affects your mentality a lot because you're still trying to juggle everything, but at the same time, it's almost like you're having a period without having a period, like the whole time. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
Because you
still
got
kind of
those,
go through the emotions. You still kind of go through the depressive, like you said. You just get quiet. You get into yourself, and you're like, okay, what happened? I was just good, and my mood has just changed dramatically. You know what I mean?
What are
And
some
that's
things
when
that you ladies
affirmations.
like to do? Affirmations, okay.
Affirmations. I go.
Okay.
I do that every morning. I get up every morning and I listen to affirmations. Affirmations of I am positive. I am kind. Affirmations to lift me up. I am abundant. You know what I mean? So I have to do that to keep me going, because if I don't, I'll be in here. And when you get in here, sometimes it's hard to get out of there.
It is.
And most of the things that you're thinking, you
Yep.
can't even confirm. It's just your mind just going crazy. And you're like, okay, but yeah, mental health is something that
It's crazy.
a lot of people don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
Even for the teenagers, the CBD has been helping even in epilepsy and other, realms that we need to talk about. We'll talk about at some point. But I'm telling you, you watch a kid and that kid is introvert, quiet, into himself, not talking. You need to go talk to that kid and say, hey, how can I help you?
My son's on CBD for his anxiety and his ADHD, and it has just helped tremendously because so me growing up as a child, I had really, really, really high ADHD.
Okay.
I don't know why I felt like I had to add so many reallys on that. Maybe that just goes with ADHD, but when I was younger and I had the ADHD and I was one of those kids that was, bouncing all over the place and, expressing all my emotions, I was actually told to quiet my emotions, to be, like to not express how you feel, just, pretty much essentially be quiet and keep your head down, like, or I also grew up in the generation where men don't cry. Men, hold in
and
their
ladies
emotions.
are to be seen and not heard. You just need to be in a corner with your legs crossed, being quiet. You can't speak. Yeah.
And that's why I'm bringing to light these things about our breasts and these things about our vagina and our ovaries and all of these things, because we're moms and this is all part of our mental health and this all matters. We shouldn't be silenced, because then we're just going to end up I'm pointing because my son's literally on the other side of that wall, but we're going to end up raising a generation that's going to have to be quiet and not understand the things like we did. And I want to break that, and doing these lives is doing that, because if I can have these moms, men, I don't know who watches, but whoever comes on and watches, if they can come on here and be like, oh crap, like they went live for the world to see with their face and was saying these words, that maybe at first you might be like, oh, like I actually had somebody, that's why I made that video, because I actually had somebody go, I can't, like message me like, I can't believe you said those words on live. And I was like, what word? Vagina? Like that was literally what I wrote back with. And they were like, oh, like they did like the I was like, okay, we're done with this conversation.
That's a body part.
Yeah,
like your eyes, your nose, your breast, your vagina. It's the body part.
What about the kids that are, who are trying to figure out who they are, who are trying to figure out their sexuality? They don't know what they're feeling, or maybe feeling for somebody else. This conversation will help them to understand, okay, I'm getting to the age, I'm feeling a sensation here. What is this? I'm feeling a sensation there. What is that? Because parents are not talking to their kids, so they look for their friends for the answer, because that's how I figure out what was going on. My friends was like, and who knows if the information was valid? But you just go with
Oh,
what
but
they say, because your mom is not going to sit with you and be like,
now they have
honey, this is what
TikTok though.
happened.
Yeah,
There's so
it's
much bad information. That's what I worry about. It's like,
That's why as a mom,
you know,
you need to be the one to tell them, not the streets.
yeah.
we're a reliable, trusted source. And then back to the thing that we were talking about earlier, we were talking about periods. I grew up in a time where that, even though that was a thing that women had, we did not discuss that. The only time you discussed it was the day that you had it, when it started, for them to pad, tampon, whichever it is that you wanted to choose. And then for the rest of the there on out, it was
You're literally
quiet.
confused. You're confused. You know, you're like, okay, this is what happens. You're growing up now. Here's what you use. Put this on. You
You're
know,
looking
make
at
sure
this
you
piece of paper and you're
dispose of
like,
it
that
this
goes
way.
where?
My mom was like, don't use tampons. Don't you use tampons? Like, what?
I grew up under the Bible Belt. It was the whole like virgin
Yeah, I
thing,
had
like
a
not.
conservative family too. Yeah.
Yeah. Same here.
Yep.
Same
I
here.
remember I got my period and I was scared. And my mom was sitting there and we were watching WKRP in Cincinnati. I don't know if you know that show.
That is too funny. That's an old show. I know that show.
Yeah. And who's the blonde on it? I forgot her name. Not Lonnie
I
Anderson.
can't remember the characters, but I remember the show.
But I remember telling my mom and my mom going, and not really looking at me or saying anything. So just watching the show and watching the blonde lady going, she gets her period. She's okay. Like trying to make myself feel better, knowing that all these women get it. When my mother just did not talk about it at all. It was like, oh, okay. And then she showed me, okay, well, here's the pad. Only wear pads and don't wear tampons. Like, I was confused. Why can't I wear tampons? Like, because it was the 80s. And I was like,
Yep.
you know, and they just, it was just so backwards. And I'm so glad that I'm not going to be that way with my daughter. And I've learned from my own mother's mistakes. And, but I'm glad that nowadays we're way more open about these things. So we have good information.
Well, and then how much easier is for you now talking about this and making it normal when your daughter does get her period? Like how it's going to be easy for her to now come and talk to you and be like, Mom, guess what? And then you guys can like talk about it versus it being this really awkward thing that we're stuck with until we hit menopause. And even after menopause, we still have those roller coaster emotions that you get.
But then there's perimenopause, and nobody talks about that. And perimenopause can start when you're in your 30s, and it can
Explain perimenopause.
That's the years leading up to menopause. So menopause happens when you haven't had a period for a year.
Right.
Before that is perimenopause. So all this, that's when your periods start acting out, and that's when you get all the weird symptoms. I'm pretty normal, still regular, for periods, but I'm getting the 10 symptoms, and that happens before menopause happens. It's like, we're coming, it's like, it's kind of like
what are the signs? Because I've never heard of it. So I've heard of menopause, but I've never heard of it called perimenopause.
Yeah,
so
this is the thing. Nobody talks about this stuff. So, okay, you get really heavy periods. Very, very heavy periods. And for a lot of the women I've spoken to, this is the most common thing. And then your iron is depleted. So I'm on iron supplements, and I went to a doctor, and the doctor was like, oh, you're fine. You don't need it. But I was still low iron. But this is something that doctors aren't even really, it's just, women were just so left behind in all of this kind of study. And so, yeah, you get heavy periods, and I start to feel period-like symptoms around ovulation now. So I get moody then, and I get a little bit of breakthrough bleeding, and then towards my period a week before, my mood just goes, but sometimes it doesn't. And it can go manic too. It can go the other way. Anxiety and hot flashes sometimes, and really heavy periods and headaches and muscle pains. And there's a lot of things that happen and change when you start to go through. But anxiety, insomnia, and really heavy periods and feeling really tired because your irons and all your different levels are so depleted and your hormones are changing. So you get different symptoms. Every woman's different, but these are some of the common things. And
what are some of the things that you find help you? Besides, we know cannabis goes both ways for you, as you said earlier, but what are some other things that you do for your mental health, to help you when you hit that low?
Honestly, the best thing for me that I don't do What I really need to do is exercising every day.
Yeah.
Like just going
Oh.
outside and just walking briskly up a hill, like cardio.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a little bit of heart rate.
Yeah,
Yes.
cardio, at least about 10 minutes of cardio a day, which I don't do, but if I do it, then I'm way more better. My brain is more sharp, and like brain fog is a huge problem for me. But if I do that, I'm more sharp and I feel better, and all the other symptoms kind of go down. So I find exercise, yoga too, stretching.
Let me ask you
And
something. Are you before your period comes, are you mentally like preparing for it? Are you like, oh, about that period?
That's a good question.
Because sometimes that mental can bring stress on the body.
yeah, oh yeah. Well, I'm confused a lot of the time. I have like mental confusion from the lack of all of the things, and so I don't even realize that. I have an app I follow my period. So
Right.
if I'm like, I don't like, I'm feeling what's going on, and I'll look, I'm like, oh, okay, it's 7 days to my period, and then I'll know that that's the problem, and
Right.
so then I'm able to. But also, just the dark season really gets to me. Like in Vancouver, where I live, we get rain for 2 weeks straight and no sun.
Yeah.
And so
You're right above me. I'm in Washington State. I'm right below you.
oh yeah, so there you go.
I'm over here with you.
Great for vampires, not so good for people who need
Yeah.
the sun.
It's dreary.
Right.
It's a dreary feeling. So your emotions feel like you're down, not up.
Yeah,
like
all the time.
California where the sun is in this, Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
I'd love to live
Exactly.
in California. Like that would be a dream for me,
Well,
to
girl,
have the
anytime you
sun
come, just
streaming
let
through
us
the
know.
windows.
Anytime you're
Jillian's
coming
like, come
through,
on over.
come on over.
I want
Some
to.
sunshine.
I'm actually American, but I have good medical here, so I don't want to move to the States.
I
Sorry.
It is
mean,
what it is.
If
It
it
is
wasn't
what
for
yeah.
your
it is.
medical system, I would, but that's just a kind of a, yeah.
Our medical system is so bad that Singapore is using it as a punishment.
Oh no, that's terrible.
I'm not kidding. Singapore is literally using the American healthcare system as a punishment in Singapore if you do not get the COVID vaccine. The punishment is you have to be treated like an American. And that means you have to pay for everything, because Singapore has like open healthcare, where they cover everything.
Oh, I
So
see
yeah,
what you mean. Okay, yeah.
yeah. So they're literally
I mean,
they literally call it the American punishment is what you get in Singapore.
but I grew up in the Caribbean in Trinidad and Tobago, and we recovered. All of us recovered. I mean, I
And you're
remember,
strong,
yeah,
and that's what we need,
all of
and
us
that's why we need
recovered.
to talk like this,
Yeah,
because that's how
nobody
we
had to
get
worry about
strong.
healthcare, and even to get,
Yeah.
even to get drugs or whatever. I climbed a guava tree. My dad said not to climb it. It rained the day before. I climbed it and slipped and dislocated my knee. Needless to say, I got whooping before I was taken to the hospital, but for not listening. But
Yep.
I got my cast, went to the window, got my pain pills. My dad didn't pay anything. It was covered unless it's a major surgery or something like that. But for
Right.
basics, you're covered.
Yep.
So
We're
when
not
you get
covered for prescriptions here, but certain people are,
It's
depending. But you go to a doctor when you don't feel well. Like that's it. I can't imagine having to think about that. Like if I'm just someone's bothering me, I just
well,
call a
we think about
doctor. Like I don't think about it. I can't. I
we
would hate
gotta
to have to think
we
about
gotta
that.
call a doctor, and then we gotta sit on hold to then be transferred to then get an appointment, and then after we get the appointment, then we gotta get referred, and then after we get referred, we gotta call them and wait on hold to make an appointment, to
and
wait
don't
probably at
forget your
least 2 weeks.
copay. And don't
And you
forget your
copay
copay.
at both places. Even
At
though you
both
had to go
places.
to the first one to get referred, you have to pay copay at both.
So what happens if your one of your kids has a really bad fever and they need treatment like right now? Like
Well, yeah,
for
you can
Urgent
go
example,
to
care
the
or ER.
hospital, but the
Yeah.
bill that you will get when you come from the hospital will be the size of King Kong's ass, that you will be in stress. They will
damn.
take care of
See,
that child, but you will get billed for every shot that child gets, laying
Everything.
on the bed, the sheets, the cover, girl,
Everything.
please.
The
Everything.
well, like for
lights, all of
example,
it.
my daughter had a double lung pneumonia, and so she woke up. She was very high fever, and I was freaked out. And I called my doctor, and I said, "Look, she's spiking fever. I think bring her in." So I brought her straight to my doctor, and she gets rushed right in, and they're like, okay, yeah, I can hear the lungs are bad. Take her to this other place where she goes, gets her x-ray done. So I drove her to go get the x-ray. Then from there, they just give me they tell me, here's your prescription. So
Life
then
is
I go
good.
home, I put my daughter to bed, and I go to the drugstore and I get her prescription, and that's the end of it. And to me, that seemed like a lot. Like, oh, can't I just take her to the x-ray place first?
You did in 3 hours, but we have to do in about a month.
Yeah, that's awful.
Seriously.
And we only take them
okay.
to the hospital if it's like in the middle of the night, like, and it's like, and I try to avoid that with like the plague, because it's a terrible place to be with a bunch of sick kids, you know. But we don't have to pay for it. It's just hours of waiting, and yeah. That's why I live in Canada. Otherwise, I would totally do.
Well, because it's insane. It's like when my son was younger, he had plagiocephaly, and plagiocephaly is where part of his head he came out with part of his head was flat. Because what he did was he decided to turn and go into my birthing canal too early, and there's not enough room in a birthing canal for a head his large to grow. So he had to wear a helmet. Like, he had to go get scans, and he had to get a helmet, and he had to he had physical therapy once a week, like all of this stuff to like get his neck back in motion. And he had this really cool helmet that we had to get special made that was for like kids with plagiocephaly. That bill, $12,000. We were lucky enough that he happened to be on state insurance, and we didn't have to pay anything for it. $12,000.
That's a down payment for a house.
That's not even including the physical therapy. That is not even including the physical therapy that we had to do once a week to get his neck range back in motion.
Oh wow.
And then it goes back to mental health. So now here we are with parents with sick children, and like she's like, well, what do? You know, every time one of our children gets sick, that is something we actually have to ask ourselves and stress about. Do I call the pediatrician? Do I call the doctor? Do I call the nurse hotline? Do I take them to ER, or do I take them to the urgent care? Like, we have all of these options, but then you start weighing it out. You're like, ER, I'm going to be there at least 6 hours, and my child is sick. Urgent care is a little bit shorter than the ER, but still usually has a little bit of a wait. Your regular doctor, unless it is like an emergency, you know what they're going to do? They're going to tell you to make an appointment or go to the emergency room, where now you're going to have to go and sit for hours and hours on end. It's not like us as moms can just go, okay, you know what? My kid's not feeling good. Yeah. Let me figure this out real quick. Okay, I'll just call the nurse and see what she wants to do, because 9 times out of it's true. And we stress about this like every single time. Like, it's mental health it's crazy, and it is just so depressed. Like, it's just so like pressed down, like we're not supposed to talk about it. But then we go out into the world, and they're like, well, your kid has 2 different colored socks on, or their hair's not brushed. And you're like, do you know what I got up? I've been up since 5:30 this morning. Do you already want to know what I have already had to deal with and do this morning? And now I'm out here in public trying to get grocery shopping done with children at my heel. You know what I mean? But then we're not supposed to talk about it. Yeah. Like, we're supposed to keep quiet. I hate it.
But you know
you're also supposed to be a mom, and that's just your job, and you're supposed to just be happy with that, and that's your choice. You had kids. That's like, well, excuse me, it's not work that way, you know.
Really quick, back to the medical situation and the healthcare system and the weight and stuff. You know, I would be honest with you. My 47-year-old brother that passed away on Friday, he waited to go and I'm sure he thought in his mind, I'm not feeling well, but shit, do I need to go sit here for 5 or 6 hours? It's like a decision you have to make, and it's something we need to talk about, and they need to do better in the system on moving. Unless you go into a hospital and scream you have chest pains, you're gonna be sitting.
Or bleeding, or just have like a legitimate, like say your arms hanging off your body.
As soon as you say you have chest pains, you will be moved quicker than quick straight to the back. But
that's
right.
The same as here. Our emergency rooms are full too, and if you go in, unless it's serious and they can tell, you're going to be waiting in the emergency room. But if you call an ambulance though, you get in.
Girl, that ambulance bill will
we don't call the ambulance down here.
I know. Well, I don't. I've actually never had to call an ambulance, And I don't know if we have to pay an ambulance fee here too. I think
I
we
want to
might,
know
but
now. Could you find out? I'm curious.
I'm
Just
not
because I'm a
sure.
nerd and I
But
want
I
to
know
know.
that we have issues with that of underpay and not as many ambulances. And when
Yeah.
there was a heat wave here, we had no
Mm.
paramedics because it was really bad.
Oh,
We
wow.
we have our own issues, like
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
hospitals are understaffed, and if you want to see you don't see a pediatrician, you go to your GP, general practitioner, and they refer you if you need
Right.
one. Then you go to a pediatrician, and you can only see that pediatrician for that one thing. If you have a different issue, you have to go back to your GP. So it's different. GPs filter you through, so it's not like you can
Gotcha.
just call somebody,
And
but
go.
we don't have to pay for it. So that's we can have long waits for certain things. Like my husband had to get a mole removed to see if it was cancerous. That took 2 months. I mean, it can take about a month, but because you have to go see
Oh,
the plastic surgeon who removes it, and then you have to have that taken to a lab, and then they like
yeah.
it's how our system
Lots of
works.
fun.
But we have our issues, but we don't have to pay a fortune for it. So we pay it out of our
Yeah.
taxes, and that's that.
Well, and it's
You
just like
know?
Jillian said, she was right. Her brother probably sat there and pondered, okay, I'm not feeling good, but if I go to the emergency room, not only am I going to be sitting there not feeling good, but I can't imagine him also probably processing what that bill is going to be like in his head too. And then so many people are just not going in and not getting seen because they're like,
Are
well, I
they
can't
going in too
afford that.
late? Are they going in
Yep.
too late? In
Yeah.
my brother's case, it just went in too late, and we have it is like you have to just, and you think about it too in this COVID system. You're like, do I really want to go to the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
If he didn't know that he had it the second time, he was like, do I really want to go in there? And then the possibility, they're saying a lot of people that went for different things came out with it from the
Yeah.
hospital. Did you get
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
news
we've
on
been
that?
avoiding hospitals too, but
Yeah, a lot of people are
yeah.
getting it, going in for something different and come out with something else. I don't think so. So that's the sad part. Yeah, no, that's the sad
Well,
part.
well, and that's why I'm trying to kind of hone on the whole like cannabis, like with the CBD and the THC, but there's something else that I also am doing with membership. But I also tell people all of the time, like with mental health, is meditation, yoga, take time for yourself. Just because it
It's
does.
kind of
It
like a
just
whole thing. It's
it
like
gives
not
so
one thing
much.
is going to work. Like you really have to. Exercise is a huge one. Exercise helps with everything, like your ADHD. It helps with regulating hormones. It's like really
Mhm.
imperative that we exercise.
It's
It's
like a
for me.
release. It's like
It
a
is.
release when you
It
walk.
strengthens you. It gives you, yeah. So it's the hardest thing to do, and also your diet, that you're eating proper nutrition for you, which is different actually
Right.
for everybody. But you're doing that, and you're making sure that you're, so those two things, and drinking water, and then meditation, so that you're calming yourself all the time and pruning your thoughts, so you're thinking positively and you're trying to prune your thoughts. And also CBD is like a nice supplement to kind of support. It's like CBD sits underneath and kind of supports it.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I find that CBD supports everything, and CBD for THC is vital. Like I just agree. I put it all over my website. Always take CBD with
Yeah.
THC.
Yeah.
The two go hand in hand. It's a neuroprotectant,
Yes.
All
and
you have to
it
say is full
yeah,
spectrum. People don't understand. They want CBD. I always say, look, full spectrum. Full
yeah,
spectrum
Get
CBD
both.
has the balance of the THC and the CBD. Like Amanda like to say, hello, they're not separated. They're better together.
So
You know what I
many
yeah.
mean?
people push them apart and they really just need to come together. They
Yeah, well,
work so
they
good.
really balance each other. And the other thing, when I talk to moms too, and they're worried, the moms with teenagers, they're worried about their kids maybe dabbing or doing a lot of THC and stuff. And I'm like, if your kids are going out and you might be worried about that, just give them I would give them like 100 milligrams of THC or CBD before they leave the door. Like,
Yeah,
because
just
it's
give it to
safe.
them before they go.
CBD is safe. It will protect their brain in case they're using, because, you
Yep.
don't want young brains
You need
using
that cushion.
THC.
You need
Yeah,
that cushion.
it'll be a neuroprotectant. So at least you're giving them something. And I would give them a good dose of like a hemp CBD. So if they are using any THC products, that'll give them some protection, a little bit, enough that might make you feel a little bit better. Because I know dabbing is really big with young
Let
people.
me tell you
And
Yeah,
something. Once I realized
it
that
is.
my 18-year-old was smoking, like I said, you know what you have when you put it down. You know what you left. I don't care how high you was. You know what you have left. And when I came, and he knew what drawer it was in, and when I came, I'm like, hello, where's my, come here. And he got, and you know, I was light about it because he already know I smoke. So what am I going to get mad at him for? I'm like, look, if
Right.
you're smoking, here's how it's going to go. It's only in this house that will happen. You don't
Yeah.
smoke with your friends. I'm telling you, I told them about Sherm and every other thing they mix it with. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
They call them butt nakeds, the way you smoke this thing and people just jump out their clothes. I told him everything that he needed to know. I'm like, don't smoke on the streets with nobody. Don't take nothing from nobody. It's in this house. That's where you know what I mean? The thing
Yeah.
is, we don't want to talk about your kid. You don't want to talk to your kids about it. The streets will. And
Mhm.
they will get into something else they can't come out of.
And you're absolutely right. And just like Georgia just commented and said, taking dabs is the best. Yes, because you're an adult and you know how to regulate it and you know your limit
A
and
kid
you know
don't.
when to stop.
It's
Right.
powerful for kids with growing brains. Like,
and
you
right
get
now,
100% purity or 99 or whatever percent pure THC. That's too much for a
and
developing brain.
and
Like,
back to what you were saying, back to the TikTok thing. TikTok thing kind of made it a thing. Like it made it like almost like the cool thing to do is if you inhale THC or if you participated in THC, like dabbing was the thing to go. But then because it becomes mainstream and all of these people are, I don't know, I just dabbed, but are dabbing.
That's so funny because DeAndre used to always do that to that song, Cut It. He will just cut it. It's so funny that you just did that. He will all literally.
Why do we keep connecting like that?
I'm telling you, this is
Girl, I just spoke to you. Oh, we're going to talk later. Anyways, so it became mainstream, and because it became mainstream, and then they start making all these cool rigs, and it's like, oh, look at my cool rig, oh, look at my cool rig, and then what they're doing is now because it's mainstream, they're just dabbing and dabbing and dabbing and dabbing and dabbing, and it's not being regulated correctly. So I totally agree with the whole CBD because not only is it going to protect their brain, it's going to protect their organs and other things that are inside of their body too. That taking that high a dose, because taking a dab, that's wax. Like
well,
that
they
is.
were dying. They were dying from the vaping.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff was going on with the vaping as well. You know what I mean? So I mean, we have to talk to our kids. And
we
this
do
is
have
why
to talk to our
this
kids.
show is so important because education is key. You can't expect somebody else to teach your kid. You better be the one to do it.
Right. Well, and
they're
I
going
want
to
to
try
help.
it. That's the other thing. Like, we can say, well, don't do that.
Exactly.
But they're still going to do it.
Oh,
Like,
but you know what? I'd
Exactly.
rather educate you. You know, I remember when my son told me, hey, mama, I don't want to go to college. I say, okay, I worked for USC. I took him down on a Saturday where the girls are sunbathing in their little bikinis and stuff. And he was like, Ma, yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and go. I say, yeah.
That's a smart move.
Like, well,
don't discourage him because he wanted to be a skater because California, everybody, skates. I said, no problem. Just go get a little communication course so nobody don't take your money. He was like, no, I don't think so. I took him down there that Saturday. He was watching them girls. He was
somebody
like,
wants to come in.
I'm going.
Oh, Georgia, she's coming in anyways.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So
she was like, I ain't dressed.
You got
but
to
I
be able to talk.
I do the same thing with my son. Like I spoke to him about THC. Like before I even, you jumped on anyways.
Hey, well, it just put me on. I didn't know I was supposed to wait. I don't know how this stuff works. I just press the buttons and it
Well,
does
just welcome in, honey. Welcome in. Welcome in.
Yeah, I recognize you from your reels.
I love watching you too. You're awesome. When I saw it was you on today, I was like, oh, it's my Canada girl, dude. I love her. She's great.
But it is important that we talk to them about it. Like before I even started the nonprofit, I got my card and educated my kid. Like Danielle Simone Brand has a book called Weed Mom, and I swear it's almost like my Bible.
Very recommended.
It's a great book.
I recommend it to everybody. I'm like in here. I'm like quoting it and stuff. I'm like this book. Because it is one of those things that if we don't educate them, they are going to be over on TikTok doing dabs and trying to keep up with their friends. And
so that's what I kind of wanted to jump in and say really quick, if I could, really quick, because I want to kind of clarify. I'm not at all thinking that I don't want to have my comment come out that I want kids to dab. You know me better than anybody on here. I am all about educating kids.
Yeah, she is.
My husband and I have been he's been in the industry for years. I've been a consumer for longer than I'd like to admit. I just realized the other day I've smoked weed longer than my kid. Like my kid's older than I was when I started, and it kind of blew my mind. I was like, what the hell? But she doesn't even know how to use a lighter. So I am doing well, I think.
Well, and to also let you guys know, she's actually one of my moderators on Facebook. And the reason why she is one of my moderators is because if you look at any of her stuff, she does the same thing I do. We educate.
Yes.
Like, so her saying that her loving her dabs is her being a mom saying, you know what, fuck it, it's the end of the night. I'm tired.
Oh, I've been a
my
pothead
brain's done.
since friggin' 98, dude. It'll never end. It's my love. Mary's been with me forever. I've been through so many relationships with so many things, and you know it's been my constant weed.
Yes,
it's always
cannabis.
been there for me.
Well, and she educates her kids a lot how I educate my kids and how I educate people. We do it through fun. You know what I mean? And I also feel like that is kind of important for our mentality as well. If I went and sat my son down and I'm like, Wyatt, listen here. Mama's going to let you know the ABCs of cannabis and you're going to listen. He's going to be like, fuck, I am. Like, I don't want to listen to this. But then he brings it up at the table and I'm like, hey, did you know it does this? And he's like, oh, what? Then it gets them talking about it. And then say he does go to that party where they got the dabs around or they got the joints and the blunts rolling. My child, well, I do a little bit more with him. He knows a little bit about the other narcotics as well and alcohol. Like I do a board.
Yeah.
I do a board on it because I can't just be like, cannabis is good, but sometimes bad, but not also hit like smoking and drinking and pills, you know.
Wait, do you mean you educate your kids on stuff? Like,
honestly,
it's like if people could just like, you just have to talk to them. You had to teach them to poop in the bowl. So what makes you think that you're not going to have to teach them everything else? And if you don't teach them, guess where they're going to learn it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and that's why this is important because now they're going to go and say they go to a party and say all of this stuff is around because it happened. I mean, it may not happen to all kids, but there are going to be some situations like I know I did. I ran into those parties all the time. I actually do a few, but you know what? That's besides the point.
A lot of weed at them.
But when I was a teenager, like I got really drunk, and thankfully I had good friends with me that carried me. I don't remember half the night,
too.
But like, I should have been educated by my parents about alcohol. This is the kind of alcohol you should avoid. If you're going to drink, maybe only drink this much. Don't mix alcohol. Don't do this. Don't like, teach me about it because instead of don't drink, it's like, well, I'm going to drink. And I see cannabis as the same thing. It's like, here's, you know, if you're going to do it, here's what I recommend. Yeah. But my kids, because I grow and I am doing all this weed mama stuff, they know everything. They probably know more than most kids.
Yeah. Same.
Mine too. Which is good.
We've got Olivia out here mixing nutrients sometimes, and that's just the best thing. My husband has brain cancer. He was diagnosed in January, and so, you know, it's been a huge part of his healing. You know, honestly, he was given 6 weeks in January, and now here we are, like 11 months later, and he's literally like thriving, not just surviving.
That's wonderful.
And so one day, Olivia actually was getting ready to go up to a science camp that we have here in our area, and she was going to take her Monterey Kushco lanyard. And just as she was being cheeky, she's like, oh, I'm going to take this to PsyCon. And I'm like, no, you know, we're not going to take that up there. And she's like, why? It's my dad's old work. And I'm like, yeah, but, you know, like if your dad worked for Budweiser or whatever, like you wouldn't be able to take that with you. She looked me straight in the eye and said, does Budweiser save his life? And I was like, well,
I guess she told you.
I guess she told you. I very much do. And it was, we told my husband, and his just, you know, tears started welling up in his eyes because, like, it's changed everything for us. It's changed the way we've educated our kids. I literally do not worry about my kids going into a party and smoking weed. And I'll tell you why. It's one word: respect. They respect themselves. They respect their brains. They understand. We've talked a lot about how your brain develops whenever you use cannabis early. I am a rager. I know it's because I use cannabis at a very, very young age. I don't sleep well because I know I use cannabis. Oh,
we got a minute. We got a minute. Really quickly. I'm going to end it really quickly with this. Second thing is, if we don't talk to our kids now, our kids are going to whine away from us, which is going to cause mental problems in the end. Whereas if we make it normal now and we make it normal to come talk to us, we're going to help future mental illnesses.
Georgia, you know, I just love you. I just love you. You're freaking awesome.
Okay. Thank you, everyone that has joined us today. This topic is fun. Yes. Membership is coming up super, super soon. It's so close. Georgia knows the back end.
Weed Mom. First book is Weed Mom. You'll learn how to talk to your kids.
Yes. Okay. I have a 25-second countdown. Thank you, everyone, for coming in. Yes, we have an amazing membership that is coming up. Go check out our post for more. And we will see you guys again next week, where we're going to continue. We're going to continue next week with more mental health, but about how to infuse edibles to get through the holidays.
Yes, I'm